Mr. Basil Agbarome, Mrs. Eniola Mayowa. Please, if I'm missing out, I will try to fish you out. You are recognized as we go. Dr. Ashibogwu, thank you for taking the floor, and you have our attention.
Okay. Good afternoon, my able chairperson, distinguished fellow Comfort Obot Nwankwo, council members present, ESCO Lagos chapter ESCO members, distinguished fellows, my professional colleagues, our special guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the Lagos chapter for giving me this opportunity to speak on a topic that has been touchy in different spheres of communications. This is a topic that transcends marketing, advertising, public relations, and digital marketing. And so it comes with different connotations and interpretations depending on the sector and the forte that some of us are playing in. I would not bore you with definitions, but however, it's necessary that it's part of the presentation. I would also speak to this concept of negative publicity, which has also been misconstrued to mean bad publicity. There is a difference between negative publicity and what is viewed as bad publicity. And for those of us in the field of communications, there have been this school of thought that argues that there is nothing as bad publicity. Publicity is publicity, and it could be positive, it could be neutral, or negative. Today, we'll be looking at this component of publicity that dwells with the aspect that may not sound palatable to those who manage brands, for those who manage organizations' reputations, and for those who are at the forefront of keeping or are guardians of the reputations of the organizations. So for the advertiser, negative publicity may be from the standpoint of feedbacks from what he gets from those who actually interface with their products or services. And for those who you may say, who may call themselves digital marketing specialists, it's a different experience altogether. But for those who are in public relations, it's a combination of all. That's the interesting part. You may be a victim of negative publicity from advertising. It may be a backlash from the conduct of your personnel. It can come also from the dissemination of information as you present it to individuals and who may find that information as unfavorable or perhaps not suitable for that particular demographic that you're actually engaging with. So there are many, multiple factors that attribute to negative publicity. The key amongst them, where a lot of people can rely on, is deficient products and services. And then you can now talk about customer service experience. You talk at ethical issues, you look at legal entanglements, adverse testimonies that are shared by consumers or stakeholders. Now, negative publicity may arise also from the inability to manage stakeholders properly. There's this problem that some persons who are hell-bent on providing content of one fix-it-all to engage with the public, you may have a backlash from a particular category of stakeholder who do not find your information as favorable. Now, why is negative publicity essential for us to understand? One, it will help us in understanding how we manage threats to companies' reputations and credibility. So it's a major tool to understanding negative publicity and why we need to study that as public relations practitioners. For those who actually are involved in damage control can happen to anyone. There are no exceptions to the rule. You can be a victim, or you can also be a purveyor of what we call one who has decided to self-inflict crisis on your brand or product or organization. So the comprehensive understanding of negative publicity for businesses is very important. And you could mitigate repercussions stemming from adverse stories, comments, protests, boycotts. It's also important because for those who are involved in reputation management, perception plays a pivotal role in shaping consumer attitude towards a brand. And negative publicity has the potential to tarnish a company's image, erode your consumer trust. So if you cannot grasp with the origins and characteristics of negative publicity, you are likely going to have issues on how you measure or rebuild trust and uphold a favorable reputation with your various stakeholders and consumers of your brand or products or services. It helps also to identify weakness. Negative publicity can bring about knowing where you've actually you're deficient in terms of providing services or products or consumer engagement or dealing with people in your workplace. For those who run non-governmental organizations, if you are not able to identify the weakness as a result from the negative publicity you get, you are likely to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over, and that could give a backlash. I know of some international civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations that have been engaged in some health engagements in Nigeria, particularly with the introduction of condoms to Nigeria, and they didn't manage that component, and so they did not identify the weakness to what negative publicity was doing to the organization, and they had to leave the country. It also provides opportunity for improvement. If you do not know your mistakes, I think correcting them would be out of the question. It could also give you competitive advantage. Sometimes, because today we're looking at the value proposition, we're looking at something good out of something we feel is negative. Someone had once argued in a school where we hold a different school of thought in terms of theoretical applications to some sociological principles when it comes to race relations. And that argument was, without the genocide, perhaps there wouldn't have been an Israel. So something may have to go bad for something great to come out. And perhaps without the crisis today in Gaza, the world also would know about the peculiarities of how people have lived without an identity for over 60 years, without a nationality, without a given identity to say they belong either to Israel or they belong to Palestine, or they're a nation or they're a country or they're an ethnic group. So we would also look at how negative publicity can bring about a competitive advantage. Please, I would also appeal to my professional colleagues here and some of our visitors here that if you find at any point in time that your brand or your organization is being used as an example, please do not take offense. These were valid submissions that we had from surveys, research, and feedbacks that had happened in the past. The narrative may be different today, but what I'm presenting today is what I'm privileged to get as data as at the time of making this presentation. So I crave for your apologies in advance, should in case I step on the toes of one or two persons by citing examples of your brand or organization. It's also important for us to look at the areas that works for PR professionals, where PR professionals should dwell with and look at when dealing with adverse publicity. One of the critical aspects that people have always ignored and had been a very key motivator to negative publicity is the word of mouth. A lot of people underestimate the value of the word of mouth and how far it can go. Some people believe that reviews in newspapers, advertorials, generating content within digital space is the way to go. I can tell you from my experience, when dealing with one or two organizations, when managing negative publicity, we discovered that word of mouth actually accounts for over 70% of success or failures of how you manage negative publicity. We also ask why negative publicity? What does it matter? Let it come. It can come. It can go. But at the end of the day, let's ask ourselves what will happen to your reputation, what will happen to consumer perception. It will also impact on your finances. And organizations have gone under as a result of negative publicity. Employee morale. Some of you who are in paramilitary services know that today, the moment you introduce yourself, having worked for a particular organization, some persons will quietly walk away from the room, excuse themselves from sitting with you. You are not responsible for that, but it's a product of the negative publicity that has been garnered from the brand that you work for. So people do not want to stay around you. There are also regulatory and legal risk involved. Countries that are actually engaged in nation branding will tell you that there are regulatory and legal risks involved to publicity. And some of us will remember or recall speeches made by presidents where people have been accused of, copying word for word other presidents or other prominent persons' speeches, and that had impacted on reputations of countries, and people would look at you as one who has no respect for intellectual property, you have no respect for content, you have no respect for the ability to obey rules and regulations. These are basic reasons why we think negative publicity matters. I would also discuss this, what we call this Streisand effect. Streisand effect is coined from the lady's name, an actress, an American singer who in 2003 tried to prevent the California Coastal Records Project from putting up the pictures of her residence and apartment online. And for what seemed to be a minor matter, escalated because she was trying to censor the government from publishing the pictures of our home. Now, do we have such situations globally or in Nigeria? Yes, we do. When you try sometimes to prevent an activity from garnering publicity or from occurring, there is a tendency people will pick interest in that particular product or service. And I will give certain examples for those who are not too young to know, and for those who are also young to know. We've had these effects in Nigeria where the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission had this rule for TV and radio stations, and it's called NTB, not to be broadcast. So if you have a music that had been released, or a video that had been released, or a movie that had been released, it requires at that time the approval of the Broadcasting Commission either to air on any radio or TV station. And I recall that one who was consistently never allowed to come on air was the legendary Fela Anikulapo Kuti. And we also had that experience with Sir Shina Peters, which the MBC viewed the video and the content of his songs as being sexually explicit, and they did everything possible to prevent that from being aired over the radio, and that gave traction. A lot of music jukeboxes and clubs, bars, and outlets started playing the songs, and it became more popular than you could find on TV or radio at that time. At that time, we didn't have the 24 hours radio stations or TV stations. TV stations would start by 4, and we start with programs for children, then move into adult programs and close at midnight. That, for that fact that Shina Peters and Fela's songs were not allowed on radio and television, did not at that time prevent them from getting traction. And also, I remember when Iran decided to pass on the fatwa on the author, Salman Rushdie, for his book, Satanic Verses, the federal government of Nigeria followed suit by banning that book. And that led to a very interesting black market for the book. Some persons had to go to the international airport, and then the bootleg also came, helped in promoting that book. Lately, we had the 2019 protection of persons on the internet to prevent cyberbullying, manipulations, and other related matters bill, which was aimed at the time, the media also viewed certain sections of that act as an attempt to gag the media. And that controversy generated both national and international discussion. And what the government felt was something that they could just quietly pass as a bill, didn't see the light of the day until there were some amendments to the bill. We'll also give some global case studies. In 1982, Johnson & Johnson was confronted with this capsules crisis, and they were compelled to recall 31 million bottles, introduced into the system. And at that time, Johnson & Johnson launched a media campaign, an extensive media campaign, which helped them in restating consumer trust and reclaiming their market share. However, Pfizer was not lucky. The Pfizer experiment on the polio vaccine and the inability to disclose data and make available data to the government of Nigeria also impacted on the reputation of Pfizer at that time. And that may have also been responsible. That may have also been responsible for the gradual phasing out of Pfizer's corporate presence in Nigeria, and NIMET had to acquire most of its corporate distribution outlets in Nigeria. Starbucks faced a backlash in 2018. Two black men walked into the facility, waiting for the third person to join them for a meeting, and apparently a staff called in the police, and that was considered a very serious case of racial profiling. Now, for a brand as big as Starbucks, the CEO did not just only issue a public apology, he closed down the store for some days to for every members of the staff to go through a reorientation program on engaging with community and dealing with racial issues. And that helped, that policy reforms today have been able to build a part of Starbucks sustainability commitment to dealing with people of colors and people with who have visual with disability. The Domino's Pizza also had this experience. There was a viral video depicting the very unsanitary conditions of their workplace, and they reacted swiftly. They terminated the services of the employees involved, and then they initiated a process that emphasized food safety. But in Nigeria also, we've had the case with MTN. And so some of you will remember the advert that MTN had, which had also a backlash, Mama na Boy. And that advert was withdrawn within 72 hours, followed by an apology. Despite that, MTN also had another issue where they had a very humongous fine of $5.2 billion imposed on them for violating NCC guidelines on unregistered SIM cards. And the result of that created some advert publicity that involved also the corporate headquarters. Some heads, were sacrificed in the process. And subsequently, through constructive dialogue, the fine was reduced to $1.6 billion. It was a plus for the government of Nigeria and also a plus for MTN. And that did not prevent MTN also from, after addressing the crisis and regulatory compliance, to regain trust of their consumers and also regulators. We've also had the crisis in Guinness about unethical advertising, and Guinness promptly rectified that. Now, in all this, what you find is, do these people just give up, or they just feel that these things will just be automated or things will change on its own? No, it involved a systemic process where PR professionals are engaged and they look at the issues critically, from stakeholders engagement at different levels to consumer engagement and also to public engagement. Now, you may find that at times when dealing with more negative publicity, some people would focus on the stakeholders, ignoring the public or ignoring other components that have to do with consumer engagement. Because some persons believe that the priority is on the impact of presses. In stakeholders analysis, yes, you may have to draw your charts dealing with impact of your stakeholders or your brand reputation or your products or services. But do not forget that at the end of the day, public interest would supersede sometimes stakeholders' interest. We've had scenarios where companies were creating restaurants for senior staff, management staff, and expatriate staff that had a backlash in negative publicity, and at the end of the day, some of these organizations were compelled to close down, and they bounced back better this time around, addressing the issues that have been raised. Recently, we had the case of a supermarket in Abuja that is alleged to not to attend to Nigerians and would only attend to persons of certain extraction from Asia. However, the explanation that the management of that estate gave was that the place was strictly a residential area, despite the fact that it had a supermarket in it, and they regretted the action of the overzealous security men who prevented a lady who wanted to go into that supermarket. So there had been backlashes here and there by people who said it's not the first time, may not be the last that will happen, because that particular community is notorious for profiling individuals. Question now is, as PR professionals, what should they do? How will they address such situations? There are regulatory and legal risks involved here, apart from reputational risk. There are also issues that have to do with the brand's reputation, and environmental factors too come to play. I would speak to NSAS. I think that's more contemporary. I think for most of us who are quite conversant with the narrative, it had to do with police brutality. And a lot of people came out in protest, targeting the special anti-robbery squad that was eventually disbanded by the then Inspector General of Police, and immediately set up the swift action tactical team called SWAT. And Nigerians went up in arms saying no to that particular unit or department, as the case may be. But there was, at that time, a lot of people felt this was negative publicity for the police. But within that same clamor for EndSARS came out some positives. There was the call for reforms for the Nigerian police. People started looking at how the police have been treated, and that brought about increased awareness and pressure. People, we saw government's response, and each time government responded, it came in piecemeals, and the public were not interested in just short-term solutions. They were looking at long-term solutions. So it brought about the establishment of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry, police reform legislation, and training and reorientation of police men and women. Today, you would observe that there are non-governmental organizations like Clean Foundation, the UNODC, the UN Office for Terrorism, the United States government, the German GIZ. They're all involved in the training and reorientation of the police. This came about from the negative publicity from the campaign of EndSARS. Today, a lot of police officers are better for it. If that protest had not happened, perhaps we would have, keep on going round in circles, and there wouldn't have been any form of reforms. But we need to also address negative publicity heads on. Why? It will help you protect the reputation of your brand. You must maintain customer trust. It will minimize financial losses. For some persons, they believe we gain here, we lose there, particularly brands that have or organizations that have multiple products. They believe that, okay, because this product has a negative publicity, we could just shut it down and just focus on others. And at the end of the day, there's a ripple effect to their finances. Some of us remember the whistleblower issue for Cadbury Nigeria, where it was alleged that the management kept on amending their records to suit their international investors so as to get in more money into the system. And that impacted also on another media brand, the Business Day, that gave them the award of the most outstanding brand in Nigeria. So Business Day was compelled to withdraw that award. And that cost the MD of Cadbury his job, and a lot of people were asked to leave the system. Today, Cadbury has been able to bounce back. That cost Cadbury also a lot by also pulling out of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, because investors needed to have a full control of the narrative of their finances. You can turn crises to opportunities. I'm going to play a video, and you listen to this video, and we can take a lesson from how brands handle crises and turning them into opportunities, and enhancing brand image and building positive relationships from negative publicity that had been garnered to their brand. Best practices in managing negative publicity. I would speak to 10 best practices. One, you should monitor and identify, track negative mentions across platforms, assess the situation, evaluate the extent and origins of the negativity to grasp the potential impact and the underlying cause, respond promptly, be transparent and authentic. We've always hammered on this as one of the golden rules in crisis communication. As PR professionals, you are encouraged, and it is a golden rule, to be honest, to tell the truth at all times. And I will say this to PR professionals here who work particularly in government agencies or security agencies, or some organizations that the truth is not convenient at a given time. Please, if you cannot tell the truth, do not lie. If you cannot tell the truth, please do not tell a lie. Sometimes temporary silence could be golden to save you. Do not tell the lie. The public is conversant with what is going on. Most times they have privilege of getting information firsthand before you and are waiting for you to validate that information. And that had made rubbish of some ministers in the past in Nigeria. That had made rubbish of some communication specialists in Nigeria who had handled certain brands by telling lies where the public are privy to the information firsthand through unauthorized and authorized sources within organizations, and that had come to the public space, and they were just waiting for whoever was in charge of communications to either validate or deny the story. Apologize if necessary. Apology is not a sign of weakness. Please take responsibility for mistakes. And if you feel that you work in services that are like security agencies where you feel apology is considered a sign of weakness, you can behave like what our mothers used to do those days. When they beat you up, they come back and buy you a pair of shoes or sandals and say you should test the shoe whether it fits you or not. That's the way they engage in their apology. The military today has shown that they can apologize for things. Today, there's a press release from the Defense Headquarters saying that 2 officers are going to be court-martialed for the drone bombing that happened in Kaduna State. In the past, the military would have stayed aloof and would not do anything. Address concerns and take action, engage with stakeholders. Today, you find organizations paying condolence visits or going to families of victims of accidents or workplace hazards, and that de-escalates the level of negative publicity to the brand. Focus on positive messaging. Sometimes, please, it's not all the time that you respond to the boos, according to the Gen Zs. Not everything requires a counter narrative, a counter answer. You must speak to the person. You must, hire a crowd, get a gang, intimidate people, bully people out of space, shut them down, do not allow them to speak. No, focus on the positives that you have, while dealing and acknowledging that there are some things that have brought about negative publicity to your company values or achievements. Monitor and evaluate. I keep telling people this. There's a difference between monitoring, evaluation, and review. You monitor to get feedbacks. You monitor to listen. You monitor to understand. You monitor to interpret. You evaluate for the future. You evaluate for the future. You review to adjust or make corrections that your mistakes have impacted on the brand and is bringing about negative publicity. Take negative publicity as a learning opportunity to enhance best practices. I would play this video, and I want us to listen to this video and see how people turn challenges to opportunities.
Please turn on. There's no volume.
There's no audio. There's no audio, Dr. Mondi. There's no audio.
There's no audio? Hello?
Yes. There's no audio.
Okay, hold on. Let me work on the audio. Hold on. Hold on, I'm trying to get the audio.
No, Dr. Wande.
I'm working on the audio, please.
Put it down. Go offline. Then when you are coming back, you will enable it on the screen. You will enable.
Okay. All right. I'll do
Yes.
that. Okay.
Go
I will
offline,
go out and then. All right.
yes. Stop sharing your screen before you can do it. You can't do it while you're on screen.
Oh, what do we do?
Dr. Monday should speak to the video and then we'll just move on because of time.
Okay. So do you want to check
Okay.
if it's on? Otherwise, you look for.
All right. I can.
Are you here?
I'm with you. My screen has been disabled. Can someone grant me permission?
Impossible.
Okay. Hold on. You are now the co-host.
All right. Thank you.
If it doesn't go, speak to the video so we can move on.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir, but not the video.
Can you hear me?
So
We can hear you.
so I
Not
can
the
hear.
video. Yeah.
Hello.
We can hear you, Dr. Monday. Go ahead. We can hear you. Speak to the video.
We can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
All right. Okay, I will play it now.
Then other companies $500. couple loads of free rides, and Standard Bank said they would clear all of the couple's loans. A supermarket gave them $1,000 of free groceries, and a jeweler even gave them a free wedding ring worth over $2,000. A spa gave them a free spa day, and a kitchen company gave them a free kitchen worth.
I have to speak to.
Ended up being tens of thousands of dollars. So while people mocked this couple, they had the last laugh.
Hello, Dr. Ashibogwu.
All right.
Please speak to the video so we can move on.
Mr. Chairman, I'm suggesting you can just tell us the story.
Yeah.
Let me just tell us the story, then we'll pick it from there.
All right, I will tell you the story. Sorry,
Yes.
my apologies. My PowerPoint. This is a case of a guy who went to KFC and proposed to his lover, and she said yes. And the picture came up on social media space, and people started to mock him, calling him a broke fellow, and the lady shouldn't have accepted for using KFC as a venue for his proposal to get married. KFC responded by asking people to identify the man and offered gifts, and other brands hopped in. Huawei hopped in, Uber hopped in, a car company hopped in. So different brands hopped in to reinforce that value to which the guy had to propose to the lady in a place of his choice. That changed the narrative from negative to positive. Now, the other one is on a lighter note. The woman you see is a policewoman, and a lot of women are angry with her and feel she shouldn't be a policewoman. And that has not deterred the police force in Colombia from assigning her to her duties. And it is believed that anytime she comes to the stadium, people are well behaved. But women are angry that their husbands tend to watch the woman more than the football itself and want her off the force. So these are the things you look at. The police had maintained this ground that that will not happen. But in the case, we have an otherwise case in Kenya, or I think, yeah, that was Kenya. A woman police was queried for her backside. You know, that her uniform, she was looking too provocative. She didn't issue herself the uniform. And that negative publicity led to the US giving her a visa. So today she's moved to the United States. She's moved on. She has a better life. She's teaching in the United States. She earns better income and all that. So you can look at the value proposition of negative publicity and taking advantage of those challenges into opportunities. And I will end with also where people see disadvantages, you should see opportunities. There's this guy who stutters and was looking for a job and needed a job so desperately. And some of us know there are some brands that sell products that just once in a year. So there was this company that sells Bibles. And this guy got this job to do a marketing and sales job. And that company sells an average of 17,000 Bibles in a year. At the end of that financial year, that company had sold 48,000 Bibles with this guy who stutters, or what we call the stammerer, accounting for the difference. And so when he was asked what the secret is, I would try as much as possible to imitate him. He said he normally asks his customers two questions. He would ask them if they want to buy the Bible, or should he read the Bible to them? And I'm sure your imagination is good enough to have a picture. If you have that guy who stutters or what we call the stammerer come to you, asking you either you want to buy the Bible or he reads the Bible to you. I'm sure you may want to pick 1 or 2 copies from him. So that's how he accounted for that higher number of copies today. And what was seen as weakness became his area of strength, and for what was seen as a challenge became an opportunity. So for those of us who are PR practitioners, it's important that we look at the positives that could come from negative publicity and work on that. And sometimes this happens, the opportunities come to us. It chances on you, and if you don't take advantage of it, you lose it. For example, the Colombian woman police today has become an icon. She has become a symbol. And so she removes that perception of police brutality. She removes the perception of, so people behave themselves because she's on the pitch. And she says, she gets messages like, oh, if you pin me down, I'm okay. If you sit on me, I'm ready to die for it. And so, but that, the women are not happy about it anyway. They want her off the pitch because they believe that the men who go to the stadium come to watch her more than the football itself. So I will stop here and take questions. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on the value proposition of negative publicity.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Is it possible for us to unmute for a second and give him a rousing applause? Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ashibogwu. Well researched.
Thank you,
and,
Doctor.
I hope they help us. So we'll take questions. Please, I don't know which one get faster and better. Can we raise our hands so it can be orderly? Raise your hand and please don't take 30 seconds is good enough. You want to ask a question, you want to collaborate with him. And again, Galaxy A12, how do we know who we are talking with? Please let us always try to rename our devices when we enter professional meeting. Waleje.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Good afternoon, please.
Yeah, can I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Monday. Ashibogwu. Let me call it properly. It's Ashibogwu, not Ashibogwu. Ashibogwu. Yes. Can you speak to the current negative publicity of
who is speaking, please?
Mike Nzago. My chairman, Mike Nzago.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, man. As a case study, so all of us can also take a key learning from it. Can you speak to the issue going on with Erisco tomato? A lady bought a tomato and did a review on Facebook. And today, she's being hounded, she's in court, the company has threatened her, and so on and so forth. Can you speak to that situation? True. In terms of internal control measures and the flow of communication in some organizations, take FMCG, for instance. There's a lot of demarketing going on in FMCG. That deliberately, some company pay some other staff in a competing organization to bring information to them. And they recently, like 5 years or so, one of the organizations we work for had an internal memo where the MD was charging the staff to go on and dominate the market, and they are ready to crush competition and so on and so forth, just ordinary charging. And somebody leaked that information to a competing brand. And that costs a lot of wahala, so to say, for the company. What does internal control got to do with preventing negative publicity, especially from staff? Just these two questions. Thank you.
Okay. My chairman, do I speak to it or I wait for other questions? My chairman, do I speak to the question or I wait for other questions?
I was thinking that you wait, but go ahead and speak.
Okay. You know, it's quite amusing sometimes when you find a key man factor impact on brands, where owners of businesses see themselves as the brand. And as a PR professional, the best thing to do is either you exit the organization or you have to just live with the shortcomings of your principal. Sadly, the Erisco case comes with legal implications. So I'm not, before I am being accused of being prejudiced on a matter that is already in a court of competence jurisdiction. I cannot speak on the Erisco matter because it is before a court of law. But for an organization, I've seen organizations that are engaged in unethical practices where they ask staff to spy. You know, spying is espionage. Espionage comes with penalties. At state levels, you can be executed. You can, so at corporate level, it goes with the highest form of, you know, it's when you steal from another company information, it's unethical, you will be punished for theft and other parts of laws that apply to that particular sector. It's unethical. But when you talk about internal control in organizations, the essence of internal control is to ensure compliance. And if internal control's job is to vet things, I don't have a problem with people in internal control, but the person in internal control must understand what PR is all about, must have an understanding of the roles, the job descriptions of public relations in an organization. It is not media management. It is not engagement with journalists and distortion of stories. Some of them have that impression that when you talk about public relations, it is the brand envelope perception of managing journalists. That is not public relations. So for one who is expected to be in internal control department, he's expected to know something about everything of every department and everything about internal control, which is an audit process. However, his job is to maintain a balance between costs and operations. Where someone in internal control now begins to provide solution and remedies for public relations as strategy, then there's a problem. You know, it's just like finding me in the office of a medical doctor. And I think if you are a patient, be rest assured that you won't survive. And that is what some persons take ownership of. They assume that they can move into other turfs. And that has impacted significantly on the practice of public relations, where you find persons who are non-public relations professionals providing solutions or speaking for and on behalf of public relations. And to some extent too, some public relations officers are as gullible and culpable as well. You know, how do you allow someone to take over your turf? How do you allow someone to do your job? If you know your job, you will, I'm sure you'll be able to make that call. I know that some of us also work in restricted environments where, for example, like the military, some of them, their bosses, their principals tell them, this is how I want it done. But they also have a channel to which they can report to the group head of public relations in such organizations. So it is important that the person in charge of internal control, the person in charge of audit, understands the role of the public relations professional and should not do the job of a PR person. I hope I've given clarity to that. On the case of Verisco, I'm not at liberty to speak on that matter since it's within a court of law.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other hand raised? Huh? Who is there?
Good afternoon, ma.
Yeah,
This is Daddy
afternoon.
Jerry. Good afternoon, ma.
Are you the one on Galaxy A12?
Not at all. I'm the one in the white suit.
Okay, I can see you. Please go ahead.
All right,
Jerry.
thank you very much, ma.
Yes.
Daddy Jerry from Lagos. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Monday. That was a very insightful session. And it brings me to this question. Just like you rightly said, you work in a situation whereby, in an organization whereby the powers that be, they want the moon and the stars to come together immediately. A news breaks that is, negative news, right? I know we've always had this recommendation that, you know what, let's calm down. Nigeria, that in 24 hours, most times when stories get to the Insta blogs of this world, everything calms down in less than 24 hours because there's another story that will break, that will distract them. But when you work with some brands that immediately the story comes out, they are there already trying to take over the PR job and say, you know what, I need you to engage Monday Note to put out the content. I need you to put another, rejoinder on Instablog. And you feel like people that have not even heard about the story, by the time we now put out a statement so speedily, it tends to spread the fire more than it should have gone. So in a situation like this, how best do you as a consultant calm your client? Because over time, it is not once, it is not twice. You tend to tell them, just let's observe. They don't just want to understand what observation means. Immediately they hear a story, you send it, and it's like there's fire on the mountain. You just want everybody to start, yeah, I need you to put this out now. I need this to happen, I need that to happen. So what are the best steps of, making them understand that there is a space for observation before you even start creating plans or trying to find a way to quell the fire? That's my question, sir. I hope I'm clear.
All right. Thank you for.
Sorry, Doctor. Let's take all the questions so that we can.
Okay, let's take all the questions. All right, that's
round up. Yes, please. I think we have our fellow here, fellow Oyeneye. You have our attention, please. Dr. Oyeneye, are you there? Unmute and speak to us. If not, next person, I'm sorry, I cannot call you Galaxy because you refuse to rename your device. Can we have Diana Matthew?
Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, PCs, fellows, and every other one. Dr. Monday, that was a very insightful presentation. Thank you, ESCOs, for bringing him up. Very simple question. Can you, if you were the public relations team of Landmark, how would you handle the ongoing Landmark case where you have developmental infrastructure and a vocal works minister versus Landmark, a private company? You're in the situation where the minister says you don't even, so you're legally in place, and you've gone around spreading, going in the news and saying, spend this amount of money there. These are a number of people that come. I just want you to use this as a case. What advice would you give to Landmark's management in handling this situation? It will help us to put into context what we talked today. And I like what the PC before me said, I don't, it's not every crisis I have that I push to the media, because sometimes somebody says bullshit about you in an irrelevant magazine, and then you want to take it to mainstream and you end up just advertising stuff that people never knew before and making your fire bigger. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is fellow Yeneye with us now? Wale J. Oh, okay.
Hello, good afternoon, my chair.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, sorry, it's network. That's why you couldn't hear me in the first instance.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to congratulate the Lagos State chapter under your leadership for putting this together. And I also want to say well done to Dr. Ashibogwu for this well-researched paper. I just want to make a contribution. Number one, the issue of negative publicity, whether we like it or not, will continue to be out there. Whether you have a PR person in your outfit or not, as long as we live, as long as we operate, we're going to have negative publicity. But the issue is this: before the negative publicity, what were you doing? What kind of narratives have you been driving? So positive and negative publicity will gain ground if you have never been out there talking to your stakeholders. Some people only talk to their stakeholder when there is an issue. So as professionals, we should not only talk to stakeholders when there are issues. We should keep talking to stakeholders. We keep talking to them. We keep talking to them. So whenever there is an error, whenever there is an issue, okay, they will be on our side because they are our friends. We have built a relationship with them. Secondly, we can reduce the impact of a negative publicity if we have been doing well. What is the role of the organization over time? So if you have been doing well, if you have known over a long period of time to be great, to be wonderful, to be performing in the area of your assignment, then when there is a negative thing, it won't have great impact. In fact, you may not even have that negative experience because there is, you have been wonderful, you have been performing your activity, you've been carrying it out. Let's quickly look at this as a case study. When we had late Professor Dora Akuili, you could imagine late Professor Dora Akuili at NAFDAC, somebody now comes out to say, oh, she collected bribe from us. Oh, NAFDAC is not doing its work. People will rise up and say, no, you are lying against this woman and against this organization. Because she was working, that outfit was working. So there was a great relationship between the organization and the members of the public. So I just want to submit that let's keep communicating. Don't wait till there's a negative publicity, and let's ensure that our work is properly done. If our work is properly done, then we will reduce the impact of negative publicity. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Dr. Ashibogwu. Would you want to round up in?
All right.
2 minutes, 1 minute?
Okay, let me respond to Mr. Adeyeri. I think there's always this mistake that some professionals do. They assume journalism is public relations. Journalism deals with timely reportage or timely response. For public relations, it has nothing to do with timely response, but effective response, impactful response. Because you could be rushing into the fray by giving a response that will be an opening to another crisis. So some of us actually are victims of self-inflicted crisis. Organizations will just tell you, respond to them. As much as we respect our bosses, we should be able to wait and tell our bosses, I think we should wait out this one. And the timing is not right. We've not heard everything yet. And by the time we hear the last part of the story, we can respond. Some organizations have been able to wait out because you could get in there, your press release will make that crisis that you are trying to avoid go viral. A lot of people have had that experience. So I would say to you, in an organizations like that, you know, study your bosses, learn how to manage them, and make them understand the implications of everything you need to do. So there's a caveat on ground that, look, what you're asking me to do will be inimical to the brand's reputation. It's not just about as a PR manager. This will impact on the brand reputation. And I would speak to Indiana Abasi, Matthew, my very good professional colleague. Well, you spoke to the landmark issue. There are 3 issues involved here. 1 is the law, 2, politics, and 3, economic issues. Now, while the Supreme Court gave the verdict that coastal areas, states have no control over it, despite the fact that it's in the Constitution, and some states like Lagos took the federal government to court. Lagos was busy giving out certificates of occupancy to investors who were building around coastal areas. Sadly, the case has political, economic, and legal connotations. For a PR manager under this kind of circumstance, you need to engage with stakeholders more rather than pandering to the public. Your money is involved. The lives and the jobs of people who work in that organization, over 100 people, is involved. They will be impacted. The investment itself will be impacted. From just being a beach resort, it may likely turn into a lounge or beer parlor. So they need to start reworking their communications effort. And this issue of every time people whip up sentiments and try to sell story to different blogs, and it will not help a brand grow. The law that gives the federal government rights over coastal areas can be applied to anyone, irrespective of where you come from. The political implication is that possibly he may not have voted for who is in power. And they know. So they want to take their pound of flesh. Those are issues that a PR person will take into consideration. There is the economic part of it. You may be paying your taxes, you may be paying everything that is necessary, but the government has said they will compensate. And we heard the Minister of Work saying that XYZ billions has been marked for that. And then he added a clause to it that after all, he's doing that because those people who are involved, they voted for the president. So you could see the implications for anyone who is a PR manager. You need to toe and tread carefully, so you don't have a backlash from government, or you don't have backlash from other investors, because someone putting billions of dollars into that business, perhaps he may not have recouped it, or he's looking at other investments in that direction. By your actions alone, it will have a multiplier effect on potential investors. So a PR manager should look at the entire gamut and take into consideration the implications before issuing out any statement or adopting any strategy that will be used to address the issue. Sadly, landmark has to go. That's what we've seen.
Whoa, very, very engaging. Thank you. And may I call on a fellow of the Institute, the past chairman, Dr. Joseph Okoma, to do our usual thank you to Dr. Ashibogwu.
Thank you, my chair.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My assignment this evening is just very brief. Dr. Monday Ashibogwu, on behalf of Lagos chapter, the flagship chapter, we want to say a big thank you for a robust, well thought out, engaging, professionally delivered, and well articulated, as well as even being practical presentation this evening. We are indeed grateful. We want to say thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for your professionalism. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okoma. So any moments will be done today. So we move. You can receive and take a bow online until we meet physically. Dr. Ashibogwu. So on our agenda is any other business. I'd like to ask, do we have weddings coming up? The birthdays too will be done the way in the month of June. Are you inviting us to anywhere, occasions, events? Please raise your hand and do so quickly so we can round up today. Yeah, please. You have the floor. Please be brief.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. I had
Chairman,
sent.
Please.
Oh, Madam President, I'm thinking of the. Forgive me, Madam Chairman. Briefly, I want to inform us that our annual Public Relations Forum and Corporate Social Responsibility Exhibition and Awards will come up on Thursday, the 30th of May this year at the Lagos Lekki Oriental Hotel at 10 a.m. We are having a lot of high net worth individuals and blue chip corporate organizations